I just finished making a super easy rum recipe using Jaggery Sugar and a few other little kind of weird ingredients. It's one of the most meaningful recipes I've ever made, and it's pretty freaking delicious. So let me show you how I did it. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, this is Still It, and a little while ago, we lost one of the good ones in the hobby, in the community. Ben from Bad Motivated Barrels passed away tragically a little while ago, and a few of us got to talking after the fact and decided it would be kind of cool to start a little project for the community to get on board with to help remember him. So if you know Ben, you can watch it for those reasons. If you don't know who Ben is, that's fine. This is still a damn delicious rum in and of itself. You can make it for those reasons. So here's the deal, guys. A couple of days ago, I put out a podcast with Christopher, who is now the owner-operator of Badmo Legacy Barrels. He's going to carry on Ben's legacy. There's no issues there. If you want to learn more about that and kind of what he's doing, I'll leave a link for the podcast in the description down below. But part of that podcast was he explained to me what one of Ben's favorite recipes was, and that was to use Panela sugar to make a rum. So we're going to base this entire project on that. The idea is I'm going to talk through what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my own little twist on it. But at the same time, I'm going to describe to you what Ben did, so you can put a twist on my twist, or you can put a twist on Ben's base recipe, age the spirit away, and have something to remember him by. It turns out that it's actually really, really freaking hard to get Panela in any meaningful quantity here in New Zealand. So this is Jaggery. And Jaggery, for want of a better term, is the Asian version of Panela. It also turns out that Ben and Christopher had many ongoing long debates about the merits of Jaggery versus Panela. Ben obviously was all for Panela, while Christopher is a proponent for Jaggery. So sorry, Ben, it looks like you're losing this one, mate. This is all I can get. We're going to use it. This stuff is a big hard block though, so I need to break this down and get it into the fermenter so I can dissolve it. So I don't really have a plan for this, I'll be honest with you. I did bring a knife and a cutting board. I'm wondering if I just brought a knife to a gunfight though, because this stuff is, this is pretty serious. I'm beginning to wonder if the tool I need is a hammer and chisel, at least to get it started. Ooh, let's have a taste though. It tastes like brown sugar that is less sugary, more molassesy, but also more organic. There's kind of almost like a perfumey kind of flavor to it that tastes more like plant material, which I guess is exactly what it is, right? I just wanted to jump in real quick and let you know that Christopher from Badmo Legacy Barrels is doing an excellent job. The quality's great. He's still making barrels. He's got new ideas. And the supply right now is actually really good. So if you've been struggling to get a barrel, either in America or New Zealand or Australia, there's links in the description down below. You can check those out. And now is a wonderful time to pick up one of these barrels. Maybe you can put a Panela rum in it. I've done a little bit of experimenting. I tried the hammer and chisel, and I was hoping that I could kind of break like largish chunks off. Not gonna happen. Got to chip off little bits on the edge. So that's a no-go. My only other reference for how to deal with this is cooking. Cooked with palm sugar a fair bit, like Thai dishes and stuff like that. And the easiest way to deal with that stuff is just to kind of shave bits off the edge with a knife, like so. And honestly, at this point in time, I'm thinking I'm going to have to do this with the whole freaking block. Not ideal. Could just throw the whole thing into the fermenter with hot water and let it dissolve. I feel like that would probably work. But if for whatever reason it doesn't work, now I'm stuck with a giant block of soggy, extremely sticky sugar. So I think I'm just going to keep on doing this for some time. I'm absolutely sure there is an easier way to do this, and that there's at least 12 of you at home going, Jesse, you idiot. You shouldn't do that. You should do whatever it is that, you know, is the proper way to do this. If you are that person, please jump in the comments and save whoever else is watching this from all of this hassle. So, we managed to get the first 10 kilos of sugar broken down and into the barrel. We've got some hot water going in here to start dissolving it. In fact, that's probably about enough. I also remember that the sugar I bought actually is powdered jaggery, and it shouldn't be that hard to break up. It's just been vacuum sealed and kind of like forced back into a block. So I went back to the chisel and hammer, managed to break large chunks off, and then I could kind of break it up with my hands relatively easy. So let me get the second 10 kilos of jaggery broken up into the fermenter, and then we got a few other little things that I want to add in here as well. Jaggery Sugar, or Panela, if you're following along with Ben's theory on this, is all in the fermenter and dissolved. And if you're going to follow Ben's process, it's pretty much fill it up to total volume and pitching temperature. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But at the beginning of this video, I sort of talked about this being kind of a memorial project to help the community remember and kind of respect what Ben did for us, which is awesome. But a huge part of what Ben loved about being part of this community was putting his ideas out there and letting people run with them. He did this with the barrels, he loved the idea of people doing it with any recipe he had his fingers in. So I thoroughly encourage you, if you're going to do this, of course, just make Ben's straight Panela Rum if you want to, or you can mess with it and add some other ingredients in. Whoa, I almost dropped me bananas. I must admit, I had thought initially of throwing some dunder into this. That's kind of where my mind went straight away, to tweak it a little bit from what Ben was doing. But Christopher reminded me that Ben actually did try this. He played around with dunder, and he decided that for him, he didn't find the point in it. It didn't work for him. So Ben, I used the Jaggery Sugar. I'm sorry, mate. I'm going to give you this win. There's not going to be any dunder. I am, however, going to throw a little bit of banana in here. So this is about 1.5 kilos worth of bananas. I'm splitting them down the middle, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to whack them into the oven at 190 degrees Celsius on fan bake, just until they start to soften up and get a little bit of Maillard reaction happening. I'm leaving the skins on because when I made the banana brandy, there'll be a link for that video down the bottom there. That was a big part of getting a bunch of flavor in there. I'm not going to put the skins into the fermenter, but I am going to keep all of the juice that kind of runs out of them and into the pan. And our last flavoring ingredient is 600 grams of Tootsie Rolls that have been dissolved in hot water. So there's not a whole lot of banana or Tootsie Rolls in this. What I'm looking for is just a slight, subtle addition of chocolatiness, maltiness, and banana-iness. And I'm hoping that kind of comes across almost like a rum-like flavor. Why Tootsie Rolls? Well, we did a Meme Spirits episode on them, once again linked down there. Turned out that it wasn't that great as a spirit by itself, but I think it has potential as an ingredient in something like this. So I know those videos are often kind of silly and just for the sake of it, but every now and again, I do definitely learn something from the Meme Spirits episode that can be applied to something like this. We'll see how it turns out. Now it's time to top the fermenter up to our total volume, which is going to be 125 litres. By the way, I'll put the full recipe for all of this with the banana and Tootsie Rolls and a version without down in the description below. You can make whichever one you want and adjust it however you want. I'm going to use hot water and cold water so I get to 125 litres and 28 degrees Celsius at the same time. So we're ready to pitch our yeast. So, like I said, I'm going to be pitching and fermenting this at 28 degrees Celsius. Now, Ben generally used baker's yeast. So if you want to do that, that's awesome. But maybe do it a little bit cooler, 22 to 25, somewhere around there. But today, I'm going to step it up a little bit and switch it out for Pinnacle's S yeast. This is, they say, suitable for rum. I've had a sample pack laying around for a while, and I figured this would be a great time to test it out. So I pitched this into the fermenter. It took off within about 12 hours, took 5 days to ferment out dry, which made me feel very happy because I had forgotten about the fact that we're doing rum and there might be some unfermentable sugars in here. Turns out it fermented out totally dry. I put the question to the Patreons and they said everyone that has dealt with Panela or Jaggery, the ferments tend to ferment out dry like a sugar wash, not like a molasses. So that was cool. And because I'm not using dunder at all, I let it sit for another 4 days just to sour just a touch. Put some acids in there to act as precursors for esters going into our distillation. For distillation, I followed Ben's lead and went with a simple double pot distillation. Because this guy right here has a false bottom on it, I just decided to throw all of the chunky banana stuff into the still as well for the stripping runs. It took me 3 stripping runs to get the fermenter emptied out, collected up all the low wines, put it back into the still again for the spirit run, which went really quite smoothly. I did rolling cuts at the beginning to find my cut from heads to hearts. Distilled all the way down to about 65% where I started to wonder where I was going to make the cut. Interestingly enough, all of the banana kind of action came through right in the middle of the run, and near at the end of the run, I was kind of getting into the Tootsie Roll flavor. Both of them were super faint, but seemed present. Although it was kind of hard to tell because I could expect those sort of banana ester flavors coming through without the banana in this run. And once again, the Jaggery itself kind of gave off almost like a Tootsie Roll caramelly chocolate flavor as well. So I don't know. Did I amplify those? Did I bring those flavors out? I'd like to think so. I used rolling cuts again down near the bottom to find the switch from hearts to tails, and I ended up pushing it down to a little above 50% ABV. I know the barrel that I'm using is quite heavily charred. I'm going to age it for a long time. So I have every faith that that slight amount of roughness that I've put in with cuts is going to develop into something delicious over a long time. With all the hearts collected and proofed back down to 60% ABV, I am left with this, a Badmo Barrel filled to the very tippy top, plus a little bit extra. I am going to pull some of this out of here so we can taste it and sample it now. But what Badmo Barrel am I using, I hear you ask? If I was doing this purely on flavor, I'd probably go L2, L3, somewhere around there. In the way that Bad Motivator barrels, or now Badmo Legacy barrels, are set up. But I felt like I almost didn't have a choice. I had one of the barrels that I got to make with Ben at his workshop, and we've done kind of a matrix of all the different chars. So there's 3 staves in here, and I'm not tipping this a whole lot because I'll tell you why in a second. So there was a light, medium, and heavy toast going this way, and then we charred it from 1 to 4 going the other way. So it's kind of a matrix of almost everything that Ben was making. Anyway, let me pull a sample out. And while I'm doing that, I will tell you why I'm not tipping that. Because, actually, I'll show you. When I tip it, can you see it leaking? This barrel is leaking because the bunghole has been cauterized unevenly and there's a gap on the side. Do you know why it was cauterized unevenly? Because I did it. This is not an issue I've ever run into with any of the barrels that Christopher's made or Ben has made. I screwed up. So I'll get a little bit of beeswax on there to kind of, just plug that up before I sit it down horizontally. Pro tip, guys, any barrel that's made of wood is maybe not likely to, but it has the chance of leaking for a little while until the wood swells up and kind of takes care of any tiny little imperfections in the seal. So what I've taken to doing is I fill the barrel up, put the bung in, give it a little tap, and then I'll just tip water on top. That way you give it a chance to swell up. You're not leaking spirits when you're doing it. Obviously some of that water might get into the barrel, so you get the idea. Anyway, let's get on to tasting this, shall we? So the nose is subtle. It's not a big, crazy rum, but it's not a crazy dark molasses, and we haven't put a whole lot of dunder in here. So it's leaning towards the prettier side from its conception, I guess you would say. But what is interesting is we do have the sweetness coming through. We do have kind of the caney organic side of things coming through. It's not like an agricole, but it is much more like that compared to, a blackstrap molasses rum. And there's definitely subtle banana-y esters sitting in the background, but it's not just straight banana. It's kind of complex. There's flavors that are similar to banana, but different on either side of it. So I think some of that is kind of esterification from being produced from the yeast, some going through the still. I hope it's going to develop even more in the barrel, and I think banana's kind of spiking from this small addition we put in, which is cool. It's heavier in flavor on the palate than it is on the nose, which is great. Slightly dirty at the moment, to the point where I would probably drink it like this, but a lot of people would say it's a little bit, just a touch grungy. And like I said earlier, that's going to clean up in the barrel. I have no doubt of that. Definite caramel, chocolate, almost, not coffee, like vanilla frappuccino that's more caramel and vanilla sauce syrup than coffee, if that makes sense. All in all, this is really delicious already, and I have every faith that it's going to turn into something amazing later on. One of the first people I talked to about the concept of this project was Alan Bishop from One Piece at a Time Distilling, and I know he beat me to the punch. He's already got a video out making his own version of Ben's Panela Rum. He's doing something kind of crazy with it, so I'll leave a link in the description down below so you can check his video out if you want to. As other people pop up in the community, I know Bearded and Bored is thinking about doing something. If other people in the community get on board with this, I'll add to the links as they pop up. But there's one more thing I need to do to this barrel, and that is to put the graphic on it that I teased at the beginning of the video. This graphic here. Why is that graphic on the fridge? Because I may have screwed up and made the original one too large to fit on the barrel. That's why it's on the fridge. I'm going to do another one to go on here. The graphic is completely and utterly free. I paid my sister to design it, and I just thought it would be a cool way to put something out there for anyone that wants to memorialize, remember, have fond memories of Ben, what he did for the hobby, what he did for you specifically, if he helped you learn something, if you have Badmo barrels and you love them, any of that stuff, there'll be a link in the description down below for you to go grab them. Another reminder, team, that Christopher's taken over the reins. It's now Badmo Legacy Barrels. If you want to learn more about that, once again, check the podcast and the link down below. And both Ben and Chase the Craft have plenty of barrels in stock right now. So if you're in Australia or New Zealand and you want to check them out, come and check us out at chasethecraft.com. Pretty much anywhere else in the world, the best place for you to go is direct to Badmo's website, and there's links in the description down below. So if you had no idea who Ben was up until this episode, that's cool. You've now got a Jaggery or Panela Rum recipe that you can go out and make. That's pretty awesome. If you did know who Ben was before this, I hope this has given you a little bit of motivation to do this for yourself at home. Take some Panela or Jaggery, make it your own, figure out what you want to put into the recipe, and have something, to remember, have fond memories of Ben whenever you taste it, whenever you drink it, whenever you see the barrel or the jar sitting in the shed. Make it your own, guys, and have a bunch of fun. Ben, you're awesome, mate. We miss you, and thank you for everything you did for the hobby.